The twin suns of Karvoth Prime cast long shadows across the obsidian plains as Anna Reeves checked the atmospheric readings on her wrist display. The numbers glowed a steady green, breathable, stable, safe. She'd been the xenobiologist assigned to this remote research outpost for 18 months now, studying the apex predators of this brutal world, the Shakari. They were magnificent creatures, standing nearly 3 meters tall on powerful digitigrade legs, their bodies covered in iridescent scales that shifted between deep violet and midnight blue. 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on their elongated skulls gave them nearly 360-degree vision, and their triple-jointed arms ended in razor-sharp talons capable of shearing through reinforced steel. The Shakari were evolution's perfect killing machine, and Anna had grown to respect them deeply. Louis Chen, the outpost's communications officer, joined her on the observation deck overlooking the breeding grounds. His dark eyes scanned the valley below where several Shakari families had established their nesting sites. The Shakari had initially been hostile to the human presence, but Anna's patient, non-threatening approach had gradually earned their tolerance, if not quite their trust. "Morning, Anna," Louis said, offering her a thermal cup of coffee. "The supply ship from Earth is running 3 weeks behind schedule. Command says there's some kind of political situation brewing in the Centauri colonies." Anna accepted the coffee gratefully, her breath misting in the crisp morning air. "Thanks. Any word on the medical supplies? We're running low on the broad-spectrum antibiotics." "Still en route. Should be here with the main shipment." Louis paused, his expression growing serious. "You know, headquarters has been pressuring me to recommend we increase security protocols. They're nervous about having only 12 humans on a planet full of apex predators." Anna shook her head, her auburn hair catching the light of the rising suns. "The Shakari aren't mindless killers, Louis. They're intelligent, social, protective of their young. We've coexisted peacefully because we've respected their boundaries. More weapons, more guards, that would only make them see us as a threat." Before Louis could respond, a deep, resonant call echoed across the valley, a Shakari alarm cry. Anna's head snapped toward the sound, her trained ear detecting the note of distress. Through her observation scope, she saw a cluster of Shakari adults circling frantically near the northern nesting site. "Something's wrong," she said, already moving toward the deck stairs. "Anna, wait, you can't just go running into." But she was already gone, grabbing her field kit and sprinting toward the outpost's ground vehicles. Louis cursed and followed, knowing better than to try to stop her when she was in this mode. Her dedication to the Shakari was absolute, sometimes frighteningly so. The hover rover kicked up clouds of volcanic dust as Anna pushed it to maximum speed across the plains. Through the windscreen, she could see the commotion more clearly now. The Shakari adults were in a state of agitation she'd never witnessed before, their scales flashing warning colors of bright red and orange. Their calls had shifted from alarm to something that sounded almost like panic. Louis gripped the safety bar as the rover bounced over uneven terrain. "What do you think it is?" "I don't know, but I've never seen them like this." As they approached, Anna noticed something odd about the rock formations surrounding the nesting site. The stones seemed to be moving, shifting. Then she saw them, crawlers, the ambush predators that inhabited the deep cave systems beneath Karvoth's surface. They were smaller than the Shakari, only about human-sized, but they hunted in swarms and possessed a paralytic venom that could drop even a fully grown Shakari in seconds. The crawlers had breached the surface directly beneath the nesting site, and the Shakari adults were caught between protecting their vulnerable cubs and fighting off the swarm. There were too many crawlers, and more were emerging from the fissures in the ground every second. Anna brought the rover to a halt at the edge of the chaos. Her scientific mind quickly assessed the situation. 15 adult Shakari, at least 40 crawlers, and somewhere in the center of it all, the nursery cave where the young were kept. The Shakari were losing ground, being forced back from the entrance. "We need to call for backup," Lewis said, his hand already reaching for the communicator. Anna was already out of the rover, pulling an emergency flare gun from her kit. There's no time. The cubs are in that cave, and the crawlers are heading straight for them. Anna, this isn't our fight. She turned to him, her green eyes blazing with determination. Those are children, Lewis. I won't stand by and watch them die. Before he could protest further, she fired 3 flares into the air, the universal distress signal, and then ran toward the melee. Lewis shouted her name, but she didn't stop. She'd spent 18 months studying these creatures, learning their communication, their family structures, their hopes for their offspring. She'd watched Shakari mothers sing to their eggs, seen fathers gently teach their cubs to hunt. They weren't just research subjects. They were people. The Shakari nearest to her saw her approach and let out a confused bark. Anna didn't have time for subtleties. She pulled out the sonic disruptor from her belt, a non-lethal device designed to repel wildlife, and aimed it at the cluster of crawlers nearest the nursery entrance. The high-frequency pulse sent them scattering, their compound eyes unable to cope with the sensory overload. One of the Shakari warriors, Anna recognized her as Kreshtar, one of the matriarchs she'd been studying, made a sound that might have been surprise or approval. Then Kreshtar surged forward, using the opening Anna had created to reach 2 cubs that had wandered too far from the cave. More crawlers poured from the fissures. Anna fired the sonic disruptor again and again, creating corridors for the Shakari to fight through. Lewis had followed her, armed with his own disruptor and a plasma cutter that he wielded with desperate efficiency. "Get the cubs back in the cave," Anna shouted, though she knew the Shakari couldn't understand English. But Kreshtar seemed to grasp her intent, herding the cubs towards safety while other adults formed a protective barrier. For a few precious minutes, it seemed like they might succeed. The Shakari were regaining ground, the crawlers' swarm breaking apart under the combined assault. Anna felt a surge of hope. Then the ground beneath her feet exploded. A crawler queen, 3 times the size of the others, burst from the volcanic soil. Its mandibles were as long as Anna's entire body, dripping with venom. Before Anna could react, before she could even think to run, the queen's massive claw swept toward a group of 3 Shakari cubs that had frozen in terror just meters away. Time seemed to slow. Anna saw the trajectory, saw where those razor-sharp appendages would strike. The cubs were too young to move fast enough, too scared to even try. Their lives measured in seconds. Anna didn't think, she simply moved. She threw herself between the queen and the cubs, and in that eternal instant she felt the impact, a sensation like being hit by a freight train made of knives. The queen's claw pierced through her chest, lifting her off the ground. Pain exploded through her nervous system, white-hot and all-consuming. Distantly, she heard Lewis screaming her name, heard the Shakari's battle cries shifting to something that sounded almost like mourning. But all she could focus on was the 3 small faces staring up at her, the cubs she'd saved, safe behind her, alive. Kreshtar moved like lightning, her talons finding the queen's throat with surgical precision. Other Shakari adults swarmed the massive creature, bringing it down in a fury of scales and claws. But Anna barely registered it. The world was going gray at the edges, her life bleeding out onto the volcanic soil. She felt herself being lowered to the ground, felt massive but surprisingly gentle claws supporting her head. Kreshtar's diamond-pattern eyes looked down at her, and Anna thought she saw something like understanding there, like recognition of a sacrifice given freely, for no reason other than that children needed protecting. Lewis was beside her now, tears streaming down his face, hands pressed uselessly against her wounds. "Why?" he choked out. "Anna, why?" She tried to smile, though it hurt. There, just Bobby's Lewis, someone had to. The Shakari had formed a circle around them, their earlier agitation replaced by an eerie stillness. The 3 cubs she'd saved crept forward, making soft chirping sounds. One of them, the smallest, touched her hand with its tiny claws, so gently it barely registered. "Tell headquarters," Anna whispered, her voice fatting. "Tell them the Shakari are worth protecting." Her eyes closed. Lewis held her as the light left, as the greatest xenobiologist of her generation died on an alien world, cradled by the very predators humanity had feared. The Shakari didn't leave. They stood vigil as the sun set, as stars emerged in the unfamiliar sky, as Lewis wept over his friend's body. They were still there when the emergency response team arrived hours later, a silent honor guard for a human who had proven herself worthy of their highest respect. 5 years passed. The Galactic Council chambers on Unity Station buzzed with unprecedented activity. Humanity's representatives sat in their designated section, still one of the newer species to achieve interstellar status. Across from them, in a section specially designed to accommodate their size, sat the Shakari delegation. Lewis Chen, now the human ambassador to Karvoth Prime, watched as Kreshtar, matriarch-turned-diplomat, approached the central podium. She had been one of the key advocates for Shakari integration into galactic society, and her words carried weight among her people. The translation device rendered her resonant voice into dozens of languages simultaneously. "We Shakari were once believed to be nothing more than savage beasts. Our world was quarantined, our people feared. But one human saw past the claws and scales to the hearts beneath. Anna Reeves did not see predators. She saw parents, children, families. And when our young were threatened, she did not hesitate. She did not calculate. She simply acted, as any mother, any father, any protector would." Kreshtar raised one massive arm. In the 5 years since her sacrifice, every Shakari who comes of age receives this. She drew a blade from her side, not one of their traditional bone weapons, but something new. The metal gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, etched with intricate patterns. Along the flat of the blade, human script spelled out a single word: Anna. "We call them Reeves blades," Kreshtar continued. "They are forged from the meteorite ore found only in the deepest parts of our world, metal so rare that we once reserved it only for the weapons of our greatest heroes. Now, every Shakari warrior carries one. It reminds us of the day we learned that courage has no species, that sacrifice recognizes no boundaries, that honor can be found in the most unexpected places." She turned to the human delegation. "The human Anna Reeves taught us that strength is not measured in claws or scales, but in the willingness to stand between death and the helpless. Her name is now part of our culture, our language. When a Shakari acts with selfless bravery, we say they act with Anna's heart. When we speak of those who protect the vulnerable, we call them Reeves Sworn." Lewis felt his throat tighten. Around the chamber, representatives from 100 worlds listened in respectful silence. "It is for this reason," Kreshtar concluded, "that the Shakari propose formal alliance with humanity. We have seen the best of your species. Anna Reeves showed us that you are worthy not of our fear, but of our friendship." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of approvals and ceremonial responses. Lewis closed his eyes, remembering that terrible day, remembering Anna's last words about the Shakari being worth protecting. She'd been right, as always. And in being right, in giving everything, she'd bridged a gap that might have taken centuries to cross otherwise. After the session, Lewis found himself on one of Unity Station's observation decks, staring out at the stars. Kreshtar joined him, moving with surprising grace despite her massive frame. "She would have loved this," Lewis said quietly. "Anna always believed that understanding was possible between species." Kreshtar made a sound like wind through crystalline caves, the Shakari equivalent of agreement. "The 3 cubs she saved are grown now. Shara, Keth, and Mora. Each has achieved high honor in our society. Shara is a healer, Keth a teacher, Mora a warrior. They speak of Anna to their own young, ensuring the story lives on." She paused, then extended her arm. In her palm lay a Reeves blade, smaller than the others Lewis had seen, clearly designed for human proportions. "This is for you," Kreshtar said. "You were there, you stood with her. Among the Shakari, that makes you Reeve sworn as well. Lewis took the blade with trembling hands. The weight felt right, the balance perfect. Along its edge, beneath Anna's name, were new words in Shakari script. He looked to Kreshtar questioningly. It says, "She died protecting those who could not protect themselves. We live to honor that gift." Lewis nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He thought of Anna, brilliant and stubborn and infinitely compassionate. She'd spent her life trying to build bridges between species, to show that beneath surface differences, all intelligent beings shared fundamental values. In the end, she'd proven it with her life. Across the galaxy now, on Karvoth Prime, young Shakari learned to hunt and fight and survive. And every one of them carried a blade bearing the name of the human who'd shown them that sometimes the strongest warriors are those who fight not for themselves, but for others. Anna Reeves had perished protecting predator cubs. In doing so, she'd saved far more than 3 young lives. She'd saved the possibility of friendship, of alliance, of a future where humans and Shakari could stand together. The blade in Lewis's hand caught the light of distant stars, Anna's name gleaming like a promise kept, like a sacrifice remembered, like a bridge built not of steel and stone, but of courage and compassion. And every Shakari, from the smallest cub to the eldest warrior, carried that bridge with them, a reminder that heroes come in all forms, and that sometimes the greatest strength lies in the willingness to give everything for those who need protecting most. Anna Reeves was gone, but her name and everything it represented would live forever. The end.